Hey guys, such an interesting video on Wild Rift. So they're back with a Jhin basic guide. So Jhin is of course one of my favorite ADCs. He has a very special playstyle where he attacks really slow and has to reload, but each of his attacks hits like a truck, does massive damage, and he's sort of more like a burst style ADC. He has his basic attack range is normal, but he has incredibly long range based on the fact that his W and his ultimate can hit targets which are like 2 screens away or so, and basically he is the closest thing you can find to like a super high damage low attack speed kind of marksman, because like Draven has higher attack speed than Jhin, so Jhin really just does a lot of damage per basic attack. And in my opinion, Jhin is one of the most fun ADCs to play, but of course that's a little bit biased because I am of course a Jhin main. He was the first champion I ever mained, and he's still one of my favorite champions to play. So now let's jump into the practice tool, and we're going to be taking a look at Jhin's skills and abilities. Okay, so first up, I'm going to be talking about Jhin's passive. So, of course, his passive is basically that bar that you see underneath him. So basically, he only has 4 shots in his chamber. And what this means is after your 4th shot, you're going to have to reload. So let me put down an enemy dummy here so you guys can see here. When I use one shot, 1 bullet goes missing. I use another shot, another bullet goes missing, another shot, and then the 4th shot, here you can see I have to reload, and the reload bar is sort of at the bottom, and you can sort of see how long it takes to reload. So you can't basic attack when you're reloading. The second thing is your 4th shot always crits, and when you crit on any of your shots, you're going to be able to gain movement speed. So here, boom, you can see that I crit and I'm gaining movement speed. So this, of course, as I mentioned, does work with just gonna randomly buy crit items, so I have 100% crit. So here you guys can see whenever I crit, I'm gonna gain movement speed, as you guys can see there. And something else that I want you guys to take note of is the fact that his last shot does missing health damage. So boom, it does extra damage the lower health the target is. So that's pretty much his passive. His passive also dictates he cannot gain attack speed. Attack speed he gains is going to be converted into attack damage. So his first ability is his Q. It has decent range. I believe it's the same range as his, it's the same range as his basic attacks. So what it basically does is it simply just throws a bouncing grenade, and what this bouncing grenade does is it can bounce to multiple enemies. So if we put more enemy dummies here, what's gonna happen is when I shoot this one, it's gonna bounce to the other dummies as well, and you can bounce off of minions and monsters as well. So next up is his W. So his W, as I mentioned, is an extremely long range skill shot like this that hits the first enemy. So it can be blocked by allies. For example, if I'm trying to attack this guy at the back and I'm shooting like that, I'm gonna be hitting the guy in the front and not the guy in the back. So another thing about this is if they are marked, they're going to be rooted. So how do you mark them? Basically, if you hit your Q on them, they're going to get that mark, as you guys can see there. If you basic attack, they're going to get marked, as you guys can see here. And if you hit your E on them as well, they're going to get marked. And if any of your allies hit them, they're also going to get marked. So here, I'm just going to do this to proc the mark. So here you can see when I hit someone who has the mark, they're going to get rooted for a short duration. Finally, we have his E. His E is basically his Lotus trap. Now, I'm getting a little bit annoyed by the Nexus shooting at the dummies, so I'm just going to remove them and put one back. So here you have a trap. Basically, when you put down the trap, it takes 1 second to prime and it goes invisible. You guys can see there. When the color goes from like full color like that to like a little bit translucent, it's invisible, and the traps last for that duration. You can see based on that white bar on top. And it takes 3 hits to destroy the trap, like if it gets revealed, for example, by a Squire's Bloom. So if enemies detonate the trap like this, they're gonna get slowed, and after like a second delay it's gonna explode. Now mostly enemies will not be stupid enough to stand the explosion unless they get CC'd. So for example, if they proc the trap and you root them immediately, they're gonna get stuck inside the trap and they're gonna take damage, but otherwise it's very unlikely that they're gonna stand in the trap and just take damage for free. Okay, so next up finally is his ult. So his ult has very high range. So here you can see that when you open up your ult, you zoom out and basically you shoot 4 shots. Again, it can be blocked by, it will be blocked by the first enemy. It cannot hit the guy behind. And yeah, that's basically what his ult does. The last shot is always going to crit and deal 200% crit damage like this. Boom, you can see the last shot is like a different color and all. So yeah, it's a really long range. To cancel, you have to press the X at the top to cancel, because sometimes, for example, if you're ulting and someone goes close to you, you might need to cancel, because don't forget that when you ult, you're technically rooting yourself, and you can't really do anything aside from fire bullets from your ult. So sometimes you do need to do that, and you can fire your ult in any direction. You can fire it backwards as well, something like that. And you of course tap the spot where you want to fire at, and you can of course aim it around. So that is it for Jhin's skills. Now let's talk about Jhin's leveling order. So if we reset level the wrong people. So if we reset level here, you want to pretty much take Q at level 1, W at level 2, and E at level 3. And then you max Q first, take ult whenever available, and then you max your W second, and max your E last. Alright, so now Jhin combos. Jhin doesn't really have any combos. Basically Jhin just, like, honestly, I guess you could say a combo he has is to do auto attack W, or like, Q W, or like when someone procs a Lotus Trap with W, but that, I wouldn't call that a combo. I call it like, a basic usage of Jhin's like W. So I don't really think Jhin has any combos. He sort of just attacks. Just like he just attacks basically, and just uses all his skills as he sees fit. He doesn't really have any fixed way to use his skills. But in terms of tips and tricks, I do have many tips and tricks to cover on Jhin. So the first one is using your Q to bounce off of minions onto enemies. So if we can get to like some minions here. So for example, if I have an enemy dummy over here, I don't have to hit the enemy dummy. What I can do is instead I can bounce it off the minions. You can see that I bounced it onto the enemy dummy over there. So instead of straight up just going for the enemy dummy outright, I can instead use the minions to get to him. So once again, I'm targeting this minion. Boom, boom. Okay, it didn't quite bounce to him. So here, this minion, boom, boom, it bounced onto the enemy like so. And that is one of the tricks you can use. You don't have to actually hit him. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to actually hit the dummy itself, but sometimes there are minions in front of him, and it's going to be a lot easier to hit those minions than him. Secondly is using your W to follow up an ally. So let's say if I'm over here, and I can, I can reach the target all the way over here. So let's say I have like an Alistair who went in on that target. I can actually W from all the way down here and actually hit the enemy dummy to proc the root. So that is something to take note of. So for example, maybe I can show this with the ult. So I use my ult to mark him, and then you can see that I can actually shoot the W from here and get the root from downtown. Yeah. So the next thing is using your traps. So the traps, a really good way to use it, let's show it in bot lane, because normally you're going to be in one of the side lanes. So a good way to use it is to use it to block the entrance. So the most common spot you want to put it is at this bush. So obviously this does two things. Number one, it gives vision of what's inside the bush. So if I have an enemy dummy in this bush, he may not even be on the trap, but I can actually see him because my trap is in the bush. So I can see him. The second thing is, alright, the second location is normally at this corner. So normally the two corners are sort of the best parts, because the junglers normally like to walk this way through here, or like, this way through here. Another place you might want to put it is in the enemy side bush to gain vision of that area. And if you put like these two over here already, you still have another trap. You can even put one right in the middle, and this basically makes it such that you're ungankable, because if they try to like walk through here, they're gonna get hit by the traps. Of course, one alternative way they could gank is via this way, so you gotta sort of look out for here as well. This is also a decent trap location, as is this as well. So that's another way to make use of your traps. So now next up, I'm going to talk about a strange usage of your R. Now this is not a common usage of your R, but you can do this if you're desperate. So another use of your R is to just use the wave clear. So instead of using it to go for kills, you can actually just use it to clear the wave. You can see that it does a lot of damage to the wave, and you're able to easily clear the wave. Now you only generally want to do this if you're very, very desperate to clear the wave, because don't forget, the enemy team can block that. So if they really want to block you from clearing the wave, they can stand and body block you using your R to clear the wave. You only generally want to do that like when you're in like the dire straits. Like for example, you're in the base, you have no inhibitor, the enemy team is coming onto your nexus and you have to clear the wave. Then you can just ult and like go for the wave clear out, that kind of thing. But that's something that most people don't know about or never really consider. Now the second not second, this is like the fifth tip already, but the next thing you want to know how to do is not know how to do, but know what to do is your frost shot does bonus health damage. So if we take a look at here, okay, I'm actually doing way too much damage to this buff to really demonstrate what I mean. So maybe I'm gonna have to like first recall and sell my items. Hopefully the buff doesn't interrupt my recall. So here, let me get rid of my items so I don't do too much damage to the buff, and I can actually explain what I'm actually trying to do here. So here you can see that on this buff, if I 4-shot him normally, my 4-shot does like 525 damage, and that's after like 4 shots. So what you should do is use everything else before you use your frost shot. So for example, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start attacking him. I put the trap down, I W, I attack, I Q, and then you guys can see here my 4-shot is going to do 696 damage instead of 525 because the buff is at lower health, and of course your 4-shot skills when missing health. So useful tip is to use your skills before your frost shot. This applies both to of course monsters and of course mainly enemy champions as well. And finally, the last tip I wanted to give you guys is how to insta clear the wave. So here you can see there's a huge wave. What you can do is you can do this basically. You can use your E on the wave. So I'm going to demonstrate that again. So here you can use your E onto the wave like that, W, and then Q, and this should basically instantly clear the wave. If not, the wave will be pretty low, and that's 1 or 2 basic attacks will remove the last few minions. So basically you just the E onto the wave, you W and you Q, and that's pretty much it. So that is it for the Jhin basic guide. Thank you guys for watching this video, and goodbye.